Right.
So what else you got, Grant?
Well, man, I got a few. I want to really ask you about this Spirit record by Jewel. That is a record. I was excited to see that you were involved in that, because that is a record I honestly don't feel like got its respect that it should have in comparison to her first record, because the production and engineering on that is great.
Well, I made that record. I am the recording engineer on that record, and I mixed like half the record. Kevin Killen mixed a part of it, but we spent all summer of that summer recording it at Jackson Brown's Groove Masters. It was recorded. I recorded it to 16-track 2-inch, and then bounced those tracks to digital to the 33-48, so I could do vocals and some overdubs. But then when we mixed it, we locked up the original 16-track 2-inch, where the bass and drums and basic track was recorded. And Patrick Leonard, produced that record, who is a brilliant producer, writer. He wrote and produced Madonna's big hits, and then Toy Matinee and Roger Waters' Live to Muse to Death, and Live to Tell for Madonna, and a lot. Patrick's a brilliant songwriter, producer, and he and I made a bunch of records together in that period of time, and over time, and was Brian McLeod, grooviest drummer, one of the grooviest on the planet. I've done a lot of work with him. I love Brian. And Paul Bushnell, who's a Irish bass player, and then Jude Cole and Steve, James Hara on, and then it was that's a really special record for me, because I am really proud of the sonics of that and the work we did on that and the vibe of that record. And because she'd had such a big hit with the prior first record and all that, it did sort of get lost in the sauce or something. I'm not sure really what happened to it. It did sell, like, at the time, Momentum, 4 million or more records and all, but in that period of time, it's crazy to say, because I got a $4 million record plaque on my wall, but that in that period of time, that wasn't a lot of records for her, because I think the other one had sold like 12 or 15 million or something like that. And
well, yeah, when I say it didn't get its due, I mean, it's kind of an in comparison, but to me, honestly, it's my favorite record of hers.
Well, and let me tell you, that is the last multi-platinum plaque that I've ever received. I've made a lot of records since then, and that was just the beginning of the nosedive of the business. 97 or 8, 90, yeah, whatever, 90. It was, and then I had just won a Grammy for Keb Mo before making that record, or during, whatever it was. You talk about just going back one step, talk about, like, you think reaching the top of the mountain is like a Grammy or something. Every single Grammy I've won, I've been working on that day in the studio on the day that the Grammys, because I just don't like going to the Grammys that much. So when I win the Grammy, it's usually the artist or the manager or someone calls me up, hey, last year, Tajmo, hey, you won. I'm like, oh, cool. And then you go back to work, and that's it. That's like,
you're right. That's what I was kind of getting at. I mean, I would hoped one day to win one or whatever, but like certain points in the career trajectory don't necessarily feel like I anticipated them feeling. It's like, oh, cool, let's get back in the studio.
I'm glad you appreciate Spirit, and a lot of people do that get into that listen, because
it's a fantastic record. Like, sonically speaking, it's one of the best in my opinion. Thanks. And honestly, I think it's some of her best writing.
Well, it was thanks. I mean, and I think it was a mutual, everyone helped on that record. And then I, as an engineer, you try to deliver the vision of the producer and what's going on in the room. And there was definitely some magic happening. And all in all, I'm actually very proud of that record. They're records that I think hold up. And that one, I do think, really holds up on a lot of levels. And it's cool that you because most people don't even ask about Jewel. It's like, for me, it's like,
Well, my buddy Spooner Oldham, he played on her first record. You weren't involved in recording that one, were you?
No, not.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a great record too, man. It's timeless, and I mean, but both of them are fantastic. And I think a lot of it is it's so different. But you could hear, and that came out what in like the late '90s or something. No, that was
Yeah.
early. Anyway, it was kind of ahead of its time. I mean, in a way, I feel like. Well, let me throw some different artists and projects at you and I'll just let you decide what you want to talk about, if that's cool.
Sure.
You were involved in Q's Juke Joint, Quincy Jones,
I
uh,
was. Yeah.
uh, Government Mule, Deep End. That fantastic.
Yeah, volume 2. That's
Right.
yeah, the well, first off, Quincy Jones, one of the most class act humans on the planet. Um,
Yeah, I'd love to just shake his hand and
he would walk
say,
to the studio, and he would know everybody's name one day in the studio. He would, one day in the studio, he would get everyone's, like, he just remembered everybody's name. I don't know who. I've never met anyone else that can do that. Like, we had 4 rooms going over at the record plant, and he, the first day he'd get it, you walk down the hallway, hey, and who are you? And oh, who are you? And who are you? I mean, it was easy to remember those of us that were the engineers on it, but the people that worked there, like the runners and the people, just, so you got 4 rooms going with a bunch of runners and a bunch of people, and he remembered everybody's name. And I was like,
wow.
I don't know how he does that, but because he, like the guy at the front door and Scooty and, hey, Scooty Mac, and it'd be like, he just met this guy yesterday, and you'd be like, how did that happen? So that, special record, and we won a Grammy on that. And then what did you mention? You mentioned, what did you say after?
Oh, the Government Mule record.
Yeah, Mule. That was really special because
You were a producer on that too, weren't you?
Yeah, Alan Woody died, and
right.
And Warren asked me to be part of the record that he brought in bass players, and we did Deep End Volume 2, which was multiple players on that, and we had James Hetfield sing on a song, and yeah, getting to know Warren and being part of that was, you get these little moments in your life where you just like work with people that you then become friends with forever. Him and Steph, and Stephanie, who manages him, but she also manages and runs the Evil Teen, which I think they had Marcus King and a bunch of other people. So that's cool. That's cool people. Really good. Again, quality of life, man. Quality of life. Meeting people, you become friends forever.
We have a project, or not a project, but the Wiggles in common, ironically enough.
Oh my gosh.
Murray Cook, I recorded his band. I didn't record the band, but I recorded actually the Scholes sisters, 2 girls, Cindy and Marie, who do a lot of background vocals for folks around town. I recorded background vocals for 2 songs for his band, the Soul Movers. And they went around a lot of different historical studios, and somehow I ended up, I was the only studio not booked at the exact 4-hour block that they were on their way between Memphis and Nashville. And they were leaving.
I can't even tell you how the Wiggles thing happened, but they were really nice people, and it was really.
Yeah, Murray was really nice. And yeah, I read an article a while back. I didn't even know who I was recording when they were here. And then I got on Facebook, was going to look them up and try and be cool and post a photo on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm like, holy crap, I just recorded a Wiggle. And that's funny. And I read an article that was talking about he's one of the, if not one of the most influential guitar player in the world, considering the kids show, how many kids may have been interested in guitar as a result of him. And I was like, holy crap, that's
well. I think you better pause for a second, and just, people are listening. They have no idea what you're talking about. The Wiggles are
that's true. That's true.
You're here going off about the Wiggles, and people are like, we don't know what the heck you're talking about. The Wiggles are a musical group from Australia that are it's kids music, and it's a kids show, and it's one of the most popular kids shows. I don't know if they're still on TV, because I know that my guys would watch it and stuff. But it was just really very, and live. They would do concerts everywhere, and they'd sell out concerts, and they're sort of like the Beatles of kids music. It's weird.
Right.
They're like pop.
I know, right?
A pop group doing kids music, but also doing skits, and it's just really a unique thing that kids really connect with, and it's not creepy like Barney. You know what I mean? It's like,
God, exactly. Yeah.
I actually would get creeped out by Barney. I couldn't even watch Barney. I know kids love Barney, but man, it would just creep me out. And the Wiggles were just like cool. It was like, it was like the cool kids like the Wiggles or something. I don't know. But anyway, let's not go off about the Wiggles. It's just like kind of, how much you want about the Wiggles.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was interesting. I'm like, what an odd thing to have in common,
That's the shit you do. You make a living. If it's not,
right.
It's like, it's
right. Exactly. Well, cool. So you worked
for your people out there in podcast land. Don't ever make excuses for making a living either. Like, just because it's like the Wiggles aren't as cool to talk about as like Van Halen or something. It's like, you make a living. The money gets, the same money that you make doing the Wiggles or you make doing some other projects gets put in the gas tank, and that money ain't any other different than any other money. It's just whether or not you had fun doing it or you enjoyed yourself. So,
Yeah, exactly. Well, you mentioned Van Halen. I was going to lead into that, but I know you're constantly asked questions about that, and I know that's a project you're really proud of and rightly so. It's a great record. And to be able to get those guys together all in the same room and it come together the way it did. Would you mind talking a little bit about that?
The biggest accomplishment of that, people skills is always, one of the foremost things that we all have to keep in mind.
Right.
And if you don't have them, you're probably not going to succeed at all, at least in this side of the business. Maybe I think there are guys I know that are incredible Pro Tools editors, and they do stuff that I can't do. But they don't really get along with people, and they clam up in the chair and they freak out. And, so you got to be able to get along with people. And, when you got big personalities, Eddie, Alex, David Lee Roth, and then add Wolf, the son. Yeah, a lot of the accomplishment of that is actually taking that and start to finish, bring it across the finish line, and know that I made the first record with David Lee Roth since 1984, and the first Van Halen record 17 years at the time, and there hasn't been another since. And will there be another? I don't know.
I honestly think it's one of their best records too. I really do, and I'm not just telling you that because you were involved, but I really do feel that way.
Well, I don't have that kind of perspective on it, having spent as much time. I think if you're going to try to be me right now, even still about it, what you would do is, like, if you're listening to me, you take your hand and you put it right up against your nose and you let it sit there for, 5 or 10 seconds. And then you say, if I knew where my hand was right now, I'd be in really good shape. And sometimes it gets like that. For me, I was really happy to get it done and turn it over, and have everyone approve it. And for those guys to go out on tour and then be as it may, whatever you think. I don't want to disparage any part of it, but I will just be honest and say that, there are parts of the vocal thing on that kind of, I just, I don't know. It's a little odd. And, but, particularly live, like what goes on stage, the band's just killing. And I don't know what sometimes David Lee Roth is doing. It's like, he's
right.
Out. But that band,
like the drums specifically,
they're a machine, dude. That band is a machine.
Oh yeah. The drums specifically sound really good on that record. He's got a unique sound too. So
yeah, no, he's and again, that just comes down to how someone plays the kit, and
right.
Anyone can sit at someone else's kit and it's going to sound completely different, even drums.
Right.
Whether it's Ringo or Don Henley or the people who are iconic. I say Don Henley because I worked on some Don Henley stuff that didn't come out because Don didn't release it, but it was an interesting project at the time because once he sat down at the kit, like we would get drum sounds with my friend Stan Lynch, who's Tom Petty's ex-drummer and producer of Don Henley. And he would sit at the kit. We'd get like tones to have the shit working, and it would sound like Tom Petty. And then Henley would sit down, exact same kit, and then it would sound like the Eagles. It was like so crazy how someone hits the drum. So with Alex, this really pretty simple Ludwig kit, tuned pretty open the way he likes it, and then he'd sit at the kit and it'd sound like, and then I'm a drummer and I'd sit down at the kit sometimes when no one's around and just kind of play on his kit, and it'd be like I'd sound whatever I sound like. And so yeah, I am. I'm proud of that record. I'm proud of a lot of things about it. There's been a fair amount of stuff written about it, so people can find like Sound on Sound interviews and all sorts of stuff. The ultimate thing for me is maintaining this really nice and solid friendship with Eddie and Alex and Wolf, who is going to release a record that my friend Elvis Basquette made with him that Wolf and I started, but I just couldn't. I was not the right guy to take. Wolf takes his time, and Elvis and Wolf really got a nice friendship. What happened? Wolf went down. He played and was in Tremonti's band Alter Bridge for a while, and Elvis produced that record, and he and Wolf really bonded. And so Elvis is a great guy. He lived out here, worked at NRG, but moved down to Florida and makes really cool records with Slash and stuff. So he produced Wolf's record that hopefully sees the light of day sometime soon, because Killer. Wolf is like the next Dave Grohl, plays guitar, plays bass, plays drums, sings his ass off. Just so being a member of the actual Van Halen family as a friend, less so David Lee Roth. I'm sure if David, and I were somewhere, he'd be all cordial and stuff. But David's not an easy guy to get along with, so I just don't even bother. But on the flip side, the Van Halens are like a family, like a wolf pack. Seriously, they're once you're in, you're in. And so I feel very close to those guys, and I'm proud to call them friends and interact like friends, where you wish people happy birthday and Merry Christmas and
That's
check
cool.
in, how you doing, what's going on, and how's the family, back and forth, that kind of thing, and kid around and joke around. Sometimes Eddie and I are just texting jokes back and forth and stuff. And you forget that he's like Beethoven or.
Right. He's basically that level.
Yeah.
Especially to yeah, exactly. That's kind of self-explanatory.
So you forget that, because he's a person, we're all people, and he's just,
Right.
a human. But you forget that he has superhuman, musical abilities. And that's the great thing about my gig, is that I work with people that are like that, and, but they're people, and you get along with them or not. And the ones you do and make them your friends, then it's not an ego thing, because, whatever, it's just, but, it is pretty cool that, I get and have gotten the chance throughout my career to be fortunate enough to work with some people that I believe are very special, and you honor that, try to honor.
Yeah. And it's really nice when someone that you admire, especially in your field, like music, is really cool, and just a person, just someone, they just love what they do, and they happen to be great at it, and they're just normal in a way. Well, another couple projects I want to ask you about real quick is the Keb' Taj Mahal record. Taj Mo, fantastic record. Can you kind of go a little bit into that?
Well, that comes out of 20 plus years of my relationship with Keb'.
Right.
We did he had made a record. I guess he made maybe 2 records before I came along and did Slow Down. We won a Grammy for that in 98 or 97. And then I did The Door after that, another record. And then we were nominated for a bunch of Grammys for Blues Americana. Didn't win any of that. I was nominated for Best Engineer. That was a cool nomination. Didn't win, but it's cool to get nominated for that. It's another one of those, like, you just take it and you feel really good that you did something that people and then Taj Mo, and then we won the Grammy for that. And it's just a relationship I have with Keb', where we just know each other really well, having done so much work together. And then Taj Mahal. And so this record was, even though it says, produced by Taj, it's really produced by Kevin with my assistance. And because, the Taj just allowed Kevin to bring his vision to him. And and Kevin's a really good producer, and we work really well together. And it was really special because the record we'd done back called Slow Down has a song called Henry. Taj's real name is Henry. So this record was Kebmo's honoring one of his idol mentors. And they had over the years became very close friends. And so there's a lot of joy in that record.
It translates to good record.
And there's a lot of joy on seeing them on stage together. And Taj is just such a classic. He's the total legit real deal. And so, ultimately winning a Grammy on something like that is a very special Grammy for me because, and it also was, I made the record during and through the illness and then death of my brother. So a couple of records I made during the illness and then death. One was that, and then the other was this Rita Coolidge record, which really didn't get the love that it needed, I thought.
Well, that was the other record I wanted to ask you about too. And God, what a good record! I listened to your interview with Lidge, and you were talking about dedicating that to your brother and all of that, and how much that record meant to you, and explained a lot of why it was such a special record to you. And I'm like, dude, I've got to go listen to this. And holy crap, that thing is fantastic.
Yeah, there's so much soul and heart on that record. David Grissom, one of my dearest, most loved friends in Austin, Texas, that plays a badass guitar, and then bringing in Joey Landreth from Canada, and the rhythm section, Bob Glob and Brian McLeod, and then Kebmo co-writing with her a couple songs that I hooked them up with. And then my buddy Stan Lynch, who I mentioned before, co-writing with her. And yeah, there's so much love on that record. It just, and if you listen to the record, whether you like it or not, I don't think you can avoid getting the feeling, of what was intended. And that's important for me, so yeah, it's one of the things for me being able to mix records at home too is some people don't like doing it, but I really like doing it. I like having the time, like I'm going to hang up with you shortly and get back to work. But, I get to actually, there's no studio manager looking in going, hey, you got to get out of here by 7. There's someone else coming in.
Right.
So I get to schedule my day the way I want to schedule. And then I just got to just not be distracted by my own distractions and get shit done. But I get to stop when it doesn't sound like music and come back to it when it does. And part of that is really important, for me, because if it's all about time equals money, I don't know. It just doesn't, it's got to be you got to just do good work, great work, Our friend at Blackbird, John McBride, always says that good is the enemy of great. So, I try to keep it great, or at least what I believe feels great to me. And
that quote from him and attitude is everything are two of my favorite quotes that I really try to keep in my head.
Yeah, well, like I said, you have a choice every day. You got 2 things, and everything else is out of your control because you can't control other people. You have no control over people, places, or things. You cannot control whether someone's going to drive into you, or whether someone's shopping cart's going to hit your car and scratch it, or whatever the heck might go on that will really mess with your day. But you do have control over your attitude and your actions, and that is control. And those 2 things, you have a bad attitude, you'll probably be doing something weird. You might be flipping people off on the freeway or whatever it is. You might be an asshole in the studio if you have a bad attitude, or whatever. You got control over 2 things, and besides that, it's out of your control. But if you have a good attitude and try to take actions that follow that, you'll probably end up having a good day just about every day, one way or another.
Right.
There'll be bad moments. There's always going to be some crappy moments. May not happen every day, but there's no way to, stop, So I try to live inside of that with a certain Buddhist mentality that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So, and then if you surround yourself with really cool people, or people that are better than you, make you better than yourself, then, that's part of the deal too. I always do better work when I'm surrounded by people that are better than me. Part of that, like the Jewel record, Patrick Leonard, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So gosh, I got to try to, like, take my level of, medium and bring it up a little higher.
Right.
They say we only use 10% of our brains, but a lot of people, we use probably 90%, for like crap that doesn't even make any difference. So if we use more than 10% for what makes a difference, we're probably doing pretty good.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, too, just being a cool hang, being somebody that people enjoy being around. I mean, I know that there's people I love to work with just because, man, they just make my day better. And it's going to be a great day in the studio when certain people send me a text or whatever, like, yo, dude, can I get in the studio on Friday afternoons? Like, what you got available? Like, man, heck yeah, let's do it, And so the project goes great. You make great music. You enjoy being together. So I try to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice if someone wants to be around you. I mean, it's
yeah. If they don't, then it's like I got to go check myself in the mirror, man.
Well, there's a great quote that someone told me recently. It says, if one person calls you a jackass, just get a second opinion. But if two people call you a jackass, go get a saddle.
Ooh. Man, that stings. But there's so much truth in that. Well, man, I've taken plenty of your time, and thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. Let me ask you, if you wouldn't mind, kind of expanding on a really good piece of advice that you gave me back when we were talking at the Pensado Awards a little over a year ago. You told me that I had to carve out my own lane, and that has stuck with me. And for our listeners, would you mind explaining a little more of what you mean by that? I have figured out what that means more just through time and thinking about it. But to me, that was a great piece of advice.
Well, I mean, you can take that any way you like. There's no one way to take that, except that it goes back to that thing I was saying where we're always trying to compare ourselves to others and, trying to be like something and, I want to be like this or be like that. And it's like, well, start by just being yourself because everybody else is already taken. So, just be yourself. Right. And start with that and start with what it is that you do when you're doing what you do that really feels good to you. That then, because we are all unique in and of ourselves, even though, I mean, some people think that they're terminally unique, like with no humility, but it's, we are different. Like no one really hears music inside your head the way I hear it in my head now. If I get music to translate into, if a few people like it, then I'm doing something right. If only one person likes it, but I got to like it first and I got to feel good about it first. And I can't be judging it through other people's listen. And so, when I say, find your lane, it's like, find who you are. That is the best version of you in what you do, because, judging yourself consistently against other people is just a really dangerous thing because, you're not then probably being the best version of yourself that you can be. And so whatever it is that that we all do, we can do it the best we can do it. And then if I stay in that lane, I am not a hip hop. Maybe if I really focused on that, I love listening to, different styles of music, but there are guys that do what they do better than I do, but they probably do that because that's what they live and breathe and, whatever. So, and that's the best I can offer people is to figure out themselves and what it is that they do that makes them, that's, and that doesn't mean just stay doing the same thing again and again, because I don't do the same thing again and again. I'm working on a bunch of different things at the same time. And I've worked on all sorts of, done a bunch of different styles of music, but part of that deal is that I love all styles of music, but there are certain styles of music that I'm not really that big a fan of. And so I don't force myself to do that at the detriment to the music where someone else could just do a better job. And I think that's really what it's about too, is like, be honest enough to know when someone is better for something, so that you're not making music that someone says, you know, after you spend a bunch of time, that they already, you know, they'll get that. They'll be like, you know, that's not so great. And you knew that going in, but you still tried to do it, forcing the issue, you know. So if there's something that comes along that you can, you know, make great in your own way, then do that. But if you kind of look forward into the future and you know that you did the very best you could do and it's still not going to be good enough, why bother, you know? So that's kind of staying in your lane, that part too, on the, you know, certain amount of foresight. And so there's balance in all of it. And I think we can't predict the future, but we can certainly feel a certain instinct about the way something may not really feel, you know, right. And you go, why am I ignoring that? You know, is it my ego that says, you know, I should be doing this, but really my heart and soul is saying that this ain't going to be so good for me or the project. So that might have been a little bit more expounding on it, but going back to the simplicity of what I say, you can take that comment any way you like that applies to you.
Well, it was an excellent piece of advice, and I appreciate it because it has rolled around in my brain since we had that conversation. So, well, man, let's wrap this up. Thank you again so much for your time, and really enjoyed talking with you. And people can find out.
Thank you.
Yeah, man, enjoyed it. And hoaxproductions.com and Instagram and Facebook and all that, people can find out more about you and kind of follow you and see what you're up to, what you're working on.
Yeah, I'm Boogie Motel, which is the name of my studio, which is that's my Facebook and Instagram. Oh, that's my Instagram, and I don't do Twitter much, but I do have it. And Facebook is just Ross Hogarth, producer engineer, because I got too many people on my personal. I might try to, but you know, Facebook it started, and I just added everybody that whatever, and then I had 5,000 people. I was like, oh crap, I got all these imaginary friends, you know, and so I don't really manage it very well, as far as like deleting people and adding people. It's kind of a drag, but I did set up a producer engineer page that, but all of that, it's whatever, you know, I don't have anyone that does social media for me because I just don't find that I'm trying to promote anything personally, except for just like, it's my life. So yeah, you know, I really appreciate talking, and I appreciate, you know, the chance to just sort of get your perspective on things and, you know, ask me questions. So thanks, Grant. And
man, thank you. Peace, brother. Have a good rest of the day out there in California.
I will. It's beautiful here today. So, all right, man. Peace out.
Peace, dude. Peace, okay, man.
Bye.
Aren't you glad that you guys stuck around for the second half of this interview with Ross Hogarth? Thank you so much to him. Holy cow, what an amazing, talented guy, and just a great guy in general. Someone I admire deeply. It's his spirit that just, about the whole thing, that just really shines through. He's such a genuine person in all that he does. So again, thanks to Ross, thanks to you guys for sticking around and telling your friends and giving us ratings and reviews. You know the drill. Follow us on social media. Catch us on iTunes and Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher. Stay groovy.